life living and making a living can sometimes wear us out, grind us down, and dull our senses. So for a keen mind and a sharp contributive edge that can make it all easier and better and more productive, let's take some time to sharpen our axe. Stay with us right now for Life Talk. As my usual co-host and friend Gina Fitt would have said at this point, you've either surfed to or purposely selected Life Talk, a television format where we talk about life, living, and making a living in what we typically refer to as an essay format. We missed Gina this week once again. Hopefully she'll be back soon. But rather than eavesdropping on our conversation tonight, we thought we would just invite you to come straight in and we'll visit straight on with you. This past week, we were proceeding with the development of a essay we call the Life Formula. And we'd spent quite a bit of time on discussing matters and facets of love. And I felt the need to do a very quick review so that we could kind of catch up and welcome in the newcomers. Eros, Philos, and Agape. These are the three words that the Greeks had in their language in place of the word love, which seems to misdirect us in many ways. You know, isn't it tragic sometimes when you can say to someone, I love you, and they wonder what you're up to? And a lot of that comes from the fact that Eros, Philos, and Agape have been misunderstood, and we kind of tried to clarify it a little bit last week in the fact that Eros is a natural emotional state. Natural in that it'll always be a part of us. We'll never divorce ourselves from it completely, and we might understand here why we'd like to, but we're not going to. It's an emotional state, therefore it has both love and fear in it, because it's about possessiveness and exclusivity and the need to control. I bet that sounds familiar in the love language. You know, my girl, my guy, my husband, my kid, my daddy, my car, my country, right or wrong. How much pain has come from that, and yet joy. There's pleasure and pain in this, but if we're not careful, the pain will undermine the relationship. Philos, another natural emotional state, has both love and fear in it, but it's about reciprocity instead of possessiveness. In other words, it's the deal, the bargain, and loaded with expectations. If you're in a relationship now, if somehow you can sit down and communicate about the reduction of expectations. Now, for example, I remember years ago in my first marriage, I was married forever. I couldn't have been happier. It was my 6th anniversary. Oh, it wasn't the 6th year or the 6th month. It was my 6-week anniversary. And I had images in my head of dinner, flowers, romance, this type of thing. And that was on a Friday evening. Wednesday, my wife came and picked me up at work. We were walking home together, and it was delightful. And she said, guess what? And I walked right into it. I said, what? And she said, Friday's our anniversary. Are you going to take me out to dinner and send me flowers and candy and what have you? And can you see how I felt at that moment? Now, no longer was it a gift. It was a bargain. It was something I better do now or I'd be in trouble. And so I said, no, I don't think so now. And she said, oh, why? And I said, let's talk about it. And I tried to convey my feelings. She understood. And we had a lengthy conversation early in our marriage about expectations. Just on the surface, I can say that I never expected dinner to be ready every day at 5. I didn't expect my laundry to be done. I didn't expect sex. And so, for example, if I came home in the evening and the dinner wasn't ready, that's no big deal. I didn't expect it. I really didn't. But every time it was ready, that was a point of gratitude. I could appreciate that. Every time the laundry was ready, I could appreciate that. You understand what I mean? It gives us more chance to contribute to one another, to elevate one another instead of accommodate one another. We're not talking relationship now, we're talking relationship. And this is what I would like to inspire people toward if we possibly can. Eros and Philos. And then we talked about Agape. The big difference there was volitional, it was supernatural. In other words, it's above nature, and it has to employ our capacities, our cognitive abilities, and it's a commitment of the will. I love you. No expectations, no need to possess or control, a lot of pleasure and a huge amount of power, not over you, but over myself. We talked about a word graph. In other words, if you take the average person out here and did a word graph, if the camera will look down on this, they'll see a big eros and philos and a little bit of agape. On the other hand, with understanding and practice and application, we can expand that agape and make a big, bold agape in any given moment in our life, and therefore reduce the impact that eros and philos will have. And therefore never get into an inappropriate facet of our life. We kind of give some illustrations of that, which I'm not going to repeat. But we said, how do we make that shift? And it was through the prism of our intellect. The fact that if we can shine love through the prism of our intellect, out the other side comes 10 clear facets of love. And we began to write those down, and we got through 5 of them. And I kind of gave a preview peek last week so that all those folks are with us, I hope, today, and the rest of you won't take long to catch up. It was courtesy and kindness and patience, humility and sincerity. These are facets of love that can be practiced and developed. We made mention of the fact that unless you are predeterminedly courteous, unless you've made up your mind to be kind, unless you're dedicated to patience, you will be from time to time discourteous, unkind, and impatient. Those are natural reactions to life's disappointments and upsets. However, you can rise above that. We have a choice. What I want to do now, though, is go on to the other 10 facets of love. Number 6, one of my favorites, is selflessness. Selflessness. Poets and philosophers, theologians have been saying for centuries that not until we get outside of ourselves can we find out who we really are. Selflessness seems to be the highest form of selfishness, because it's the selfless people who are getting what the selfish people want. Well, what is that real bottom line that we're all seeking? I contend that it's peace of mind and esteem, and selfless people seem to have that in abundance. Now, there are intermittent periods in all of our lives when we could be perceived as being selfish. And that's in those points when we're busying ourselves, dedicating ourselves, absorbing ourselves into acquiring, accumulating, assimilating, or absorbing knowledge, skill, and power in order to be able to have something to contribute. But if we're absorbing this and we're doing it with the sake of making a difference, I think we could probably stand above accusation, even though they will flow. It's been my experience that if a person really gets dedicated to moving forward with their life, a lot of people are going to criticize them. They're going to say, you're just not like you used to be. That's all you care about is getting ahead, making money, achievement. You've left everyone behind. And that's a fairly normal thing. However, those who continue find that that separateness begins to diminish and people begin to get back together again. Selflessness, very, very important. The next one is generosity. Generosity. Certainly with your assets and your fortune, if you have any, but generosity. But more important than the fortune and the assets is time and attention. Now, it's an incredible act of love is just being there with someone, listening attentively to what they say, even though they might have said it 100 times before. To not always have a solution, but just to be there and to listen. This is one of the traits that women seem to have claimed for themselves, and yet some of the strongest, most caring listeners I've ever experienced in my life were men. So it's not a gender thing, it's a people thing. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Sometimes you can be strong at this, sometimes weak. And that is the devotion of your time and energy and your attention to someone who really seems to be hurting. There's a little secret in developing a relationship that we speak of. If you listen to someone talk, and really listen, sometimes we speak in terms of re-articulating. Because if you have trouble listening, what you might do is to kind of get focused in and just say everything the person is saying in the same moment that they're saying it in your mind. That way you won't miss a single word, a single syllable. And listen to what they have to say. And then when they stop talking, just wait patiently, keep quiet, and they'll start talking again perhaps. And you listen to that, and then they'll stop, and you keep listening, and then they'll start again. And in that second, third, maybe fourth expulsion of information, of feelings, and what have you, they will find their spirit, and they will love you more than they ever have. Everyone loves a good listener because it's an ultimate love act, generosity. Number 8, guilelessness. In other words, guilelessness, without guile. Because if you can reduce the psychic secrets in a relationship, one of the great lies of the universe is, I wouldn't want to tell her that, it would hurt her so, or I wouldn't want to tell him, he would leave me. It's the unspoken things that sometimes cause the trouble in a relationship. It's being able to find someone that you can be transparent with, candid with, authentic with, without guile. No tricks, no secrets. I've had some experiences with this. I've had people open themselves to me and tell me things that they've never spoken to another human being. And in some cases, I'm certain I've been told things that they'd been trying to hide from their gods. And it was so easy to love them, and they knew it. And it's something to practice. It takes courage, We're not saying this is easy. I'm saying that it's possible. Selflessness, generosity, guilelessness, good temper. I'm going to write right over this one, but good temper. People say, what do you mean good temper? What is that? Well, it's the opposite of bad temper. Somehow in our society we've been led to believe by, experts in some cases, that it's good to get it off our chest. Unload it, otherwise it's going to store up. And in a logical way, I suppose that seems to make sense. But who do we do it with? We do it with the most intimate people in our lives, with our children, with our spouses, with our friends oftentimes. And I'm suggesting that if you want to dump it, find a stranger on the street and let it go. But in all probability, you don't have the courage because you don't know how they're going to react. And what I'm saying is I don't buy it. Now, there was a period in my life when I exuded a lot of it. Early on, it was on people, and I'm not the least bit proud of that. I didn't know how not to do it. I hurt some people pretty bad physically, and somehow I was able to kind of win my way through and not be imprisoned or anything. But it frightened me because I didn't want to get in that much trouble. And so I began to take it out on the world. The material things, slammed doors, broken windows, kicked tires, and this type of thing. And it wasn't working. And years ago when I started working on this formula, that began to diminish and diminish. And I haven't really had an episode in well over a quarter century. And I'd want that for everybody. The same kind of things have happened. I was so proud of myself yesterday. I ran into a moment in time when there was an event where 25 years ago I'd have been ripping and tearing and making a whole lot of noise and getting myself and other people into trouble. And yet I was with the moment. I absorbed it, I let it be the way it was, and I got out of there, and later the solution to my problem was at hand. And so I was really pleased that I had the formula to work with and could manage this, could manage it. I guess there was a period here about 3 or 4 years ago when I kind of tested myself. I allowed myself, I kind of just let loose and allowed myself in a day or 2 or 3 to kind of slam a door and grouse a little bit about things that I don't normally grouse about. And I quickly stopped it because I could see that it was becoming a what? Yes, a habit. Yes, and I stopped it. You can't practice all these at the same time. I wish you could. It just doesn't work that way. You have to compartmentalize. You have to focus. And what I'm going to suggest is that, just as last week we mentioned, that you have a courtesy day. Have a courtesy day. Just devote yourself to that. The next day, have a kindness day. And then go on to your patient day, and then a humility day. And get all the way through, and then start over again and do it again. And each time, a little bit of it's going to stick. Ben Franklin years ago had 13 characteristics that he did this with on a weekly basis. And for one whole week, he'd be as enthusiastic as he could be. And the following week, he'd be frugal. And the following week, he would be punctual. In other words, he would focus on these characteristics 1 week at a time, had 13 of them, so at the end of a quarter, he could start over again, and a year, repeat it 4 times. And it was in his biography, and it was delightful to read about, and certainly it contributed to the development of a powerful, powerful man that we still talk about. The fact of the matter is, though, that you will never be as courteous as you might be. You'll never be as kind as you could be or as patient as you would be. without number 10 over here, number 10. Number 10 is so terribly important that what I recommend is that when you have a courtesy day, you have a number 10 day. And when you have a kind day, you have a number 10 day. And when you have a patient day, you'll have a number 10 day, and so on through the list. And that number 10 is forgiveness. Forgiveness. Not until we really get good at forgiving can we ever be as complete as we might be. If we have hurt and pain and upset and aggravation, a certain level of vindictiveness, or even for that matter, guilt, knows if we haven't forgiven ourselves for things in our past, the future cannot possibly be as bright as it should be. And so forgiveness. And this is tough. We've been misled about it. We've been told that we should forgive and forget, and that's a lie. There's no erasure in the human mind. You're not going to forget. And so people say, well, how can you really forgive then? Or other people say, yeah, I've forgotten. You know, I don't carry it around with me anymore. Unless you've handled it in a specific way, however, chances are you've just buried it. You've repressed it. And it'll come bubbling out at the most inappropriate times. Just let go, they say. And I'm sure there's a lot of minds out there who say, yeah, well, how do you do that? I've been to some delightful seminars and read a lot of material, and frankly, they don't seem to go all the way. In the next few weeks, we may go back into what I call the Command Commission, which is specifically about processes for forgiving. But the key is reperceiving. In other words, to understand, to forgive, to express your love, and to reperceive the experience. In other words, tinting and touching someone else's fear and misbehavior with your love and understanding. We don't have time to get into it too deeply, but this seems to be the key. And so now we have 10 facets of love, that as you practice them, your agape grows and grows and grows, and then pretty soon the life formula really becomes a tool you can use. However, it'll work this evening. In other words, let's go back to the life formula. I think I've got it pretty handy here. Here we are. The life formula is a verbal icon. To review quickly for those who are new with us, it's a formula that's encased in a moment of time. We talk in terms of being above the line or below the line. And when you're above the line, we'll say that you're in a love mode. And if you don't know where you are exactly, if you can't tell, just find out if you're in contribution instead of survival. Now, are you attempting to make a difference in someone's life? Are you elevating, educating, enhancing, enriching someone or something? Then you're in a love mode. You're above the line. Are you responding to life and its events? And are you making adjustments? Using your cognitive ability to make changes that are favorable rather than having to adapt, to surrender, to cope, to accommodate, to make do. In other words, the life formula. I would submit that you send in to Life Talk by calling, you call in 1-800-661-3490, and we'll send you some tools, a feelings list, a little card, a reminder card that you can carry around in your wallet or put on your steering wheel in the car or on your bathroom mirror at home to remind you of the formula, and start practicing it. Now, the way you do this, say for example, if you have a moment of frustration or aggravation, or you become discourteous or unkind or insensitive or whatever, here's what you do in order to use the formula. I'm going to slip this up here a little bit like this and see if we can make reference. I say that you rush to your trinity of esteem. And a trinity of esteem is this little spot right in here, if the camera can pick up on it. The trinity of esteem. It's in that place, that moment of time when you satisfy your libido completely. In other words, where you be. In other words, just kind of check in and be here on the world, in the universe, wherever you happen to be. Be where you are at that present time, and from your perspective, that'll be called a here. And then get into the moment, which is called a now. Be here now. Now, right away, just getting into the moment and being in the present, all right, you begin to move above the line anyway. It's really fascinating that most of our anxiety and stress and agitation is coming from the past and future. If you'll practice just kind of getting into the moment frequently and then start storing up those moments. See, you understand that if you have a good moment and a good moment and a good moment and another good moment and another, after a while you've got a great life. And that's what the Trinity of Esteem is about. Get into the moment by be here now. What I'm saying is you can just say those words. The next thing you do is to say, wait a minute, what is it that I'm afraid of? Because if you're below the line in your behavior, in other words, if you're inappropriate in any way at all, something is going on that's causing you anxiety or stress, which is a reflection of fear. Just acknowledge, what am I afraid of? You may or may not be able to recognize it at the moment. Chances are you will, though. Maybe the fear is that you don't want to be embarrassed by being late. Maybe the fear is that you don't want to be taken for granted. Maybe the fear is that, it could be any number of things, but you'll know in that moment, chances are. The next thing is to say, am I really going to die, though? Am I really going to die right now? Now, why do I say that? Because when you go into a fear mode, you go into survival. Okay, and in an irrational way, that means you're about to die at a subliminal level. And once you acknowledge that you're not, see, am I really going to die right now? When you say no, now you have a choice. At that moment, you have a choice to stay where you are below the line and agitate and fuss and frustrate, or move above the line with choice. Now, what you do, okay, you move above the line and say, okay, what can I contribute here instead of being in survival? What can I contribute? How can I respond? How can I move to this and embrace it in some way rather than reacting? What adjustment can I make here, or can I practice, because it's always going to be a practice. What adjustment can I practice rather than adapting? And more importantly, which facet of agape can I apply? Is this a time for courtesy or kindness or patience? Or is this a moment of selflessness or generosity? Just being able to listen and to understand what's going on. In other words, you're going to be above the line. That's how you handle yourself. If you learn the formula, you'll begin to find it in your mind's eye. My mind's eye seems to be somewhere up in here somewhere, and I find myself, I know, like yesterday, I really moved right up to that, and I was using it, and I was so pleased with the calming effect that it has. After a while, you won't even refer to it. You'll just kind of be doing it. Now, I'm not saying you'll never go into a fear mode, but you can do it so quickly and get out of it so quickly that no one will even know you've been there. And after a while, you won't either. In other words, there's a peacefulness, a sense of esteem that begins to permeate you that can make all the difference in the world. With the life formula, you can stand right in the midst of chaos and confusion and upset and aggravation and not participate. I'll guarantee that. I'll guarantee it. Now, this is when it's happening for you. Now, when you do what I do, I talk to a lot of people every day, and I see a lot of fear. In other words, when I come up to someone, I know where they are. I can begin to sense it right away. And so, if they're below the line, as if they're in a fear mode, what I attempt to do is to slow them down. Just slow them down, calm them down, and reassure them with my behavior. Now, what does that mean? To slow them down, I talk slower than they're talking. Not dramatically so, just a little. Because if you do it too dramatically, they'll sense something and they'll get upset. But just talk a little slower than they're talking, a little lower than they're talking. Not dramatically lower, just a little lower. Slower and lower. Move slowly. Okay? Talk slowly, talk, with less volume. That'll tend to slow them down, because if someone is anxious, they're breathing fast, the heart rate's up, body movements are jerky, you can correct that with your behavior. Reassure them with your behavior. Insofar as opening your palms, tilting your head, don't raise your chin or lower it. That aggravates people at a subliminal level. But open the palm, tip the head, smile, speak softly. Reassure them with your behavior, and then go ahead and continue with your project with them. And if it doesn't work, if they stay in a fear mode and you can see the developing inappropriate behavior, I would say to retreat. Just get out of there, come back some other day. Because the truth of the matter is, you may not be the issue. Something else may be going on in their life that day that makes it impossible for them to receive you well. Today's brush-off, if you would, is tomorrow's embracement. And so be aware of this. Life formula. Why would you even bother? We just got a couple of minutes left, and I want to make it clear what's really happening when you're using the formula. When you're above that line, just a little or a lot, as opposed to being below the line, just a little or a lot, the difference is this. When you're above the line, you're conscious. You're able to use the better two parts of your mind, your conscious and your conscience. When you're below the line, you're functioning at a subconscious, subliminal, primal level, and you can get in trouble that way, believe you me. When you're above the line, you're in command. In other words, you can exercise your authority, your intellect, your ability to make choices and decisions. When you're below the line, the subconscious mind thinks you're in control, and you're not. You never are. When you're above the line, you can be objective. That's a powerful place to be, as opposed to being below the line and being subjective. That's a painful place. When you're above the line, you can initiate, you can create. When you're below the line, you will accommodate. You will succumb, you'll surrender, you'll adapt. Any wonder where this has made a difference in some people's lives, and we want it to make a difference in yours. So if you would, don't hesitate to call Life Talk. I believe you can see the number here. It's 1-800-661-3490. And if you'll call in, we will send you a ticket. Just for watching and for calling, we'll send you a ticket to a live performance of this essay in its entirety. It's a good experience, and we guarantee it. Usually it's a $39 experience, but we'll send you free tickets just to be our guest. We'll also include the little card that I mentioned that's a reminder. We'll send you a feelings list. We'll equip you in every way possible so that you can enrich and enhance and enliven your life. Because when that happens, our world gets better. Once again, it's Life Talk about life living and making a living. The number is 1-800-661-3490, and my name is Bern. That's B-E-R-N. The last name is Moses, Bern Moses, and thanks for watching.